want to go around and kind of ask you guys, because I've been doing a lot of talking lately, and I want to see what you guys are doing for prospecting. And I want to go around each one of you one by one, and I want to get your take on what you guys are doing as far as prospecting goes. And so I think it's best. I think it's if there's that interaction between each one and myself, and I can kind of see what you guys are doing and where you guys can better off, tweak a little bit. I think that'll be helpful. So I think we should do that. How do you guys feel about that?
I'll do it first.
Okay, go for it.
Nothing. Who's next? I'm just praying to the Lord to see if I can start. I really
Angela, I know. Angela, you're getting back into the swing of things. Julio, let's go with you.
Okay. So obviously, you know that I have a list of Hialeah. I go through the list. Honestly, I haven't called tenants, and it's been a while since I've called tenants. So I've been focusing on owners in the Hialeah area with the list. Another thing that I do, and I mix and match throughout the day, if I'm already, let's say we got an offer on the cold storage in right there, I don't know if that's Hialeah or it's in the border of Hialeah in North Miami, right? So we already got an offer there. We're working there. So I call the owners in the area. And it's something that I've always done. I use that as an excuse to call some of the owners. I call the neighbors, and kind of tell them, hey, I have a group interested. We already have an offer on a property nearby, a very serious group. They've asked me to call on your property to see if there's an interest, if you have a price in mind. So I mix and match with the list, and then other properties that I'm working on the area. And if they're not selling, a lot of times with people are in the Hialeah retail, I use it as an excuse as well, right? Because I'm looking for buyers. I call the area to look for buyers for the retail. And in that process, you may start a conversation and they may ask you, so what are you selling it for? How much is it selling? They ask for questions. And that, to me, that gives me an excuse to save their information for a future, whether it's a sell or a lease. So that's how I do it. That's how I've been doing it.
So yeah, piggybacking on what Julio said, many times when you have like a listing, for example, Julio has his listing, right? The retail listing with a listing of some sort. It doesn't even have to be yours, but it could be of the team.
Mm-hmm.
That helps you penetrate and get into the door with certain owners, okay? Because now you have some information that you want to share with them. Hey, I have this property I'm selling. And that brings me back to when I was hunting for cold storage on a property in Medley, and I had just called the Yellow Pages. And I was like, hey, I have this property. It's not listed for sale. I bumped into a seller at that point because I randomly called, pitching him something else. But in reality, he goes, listen, thank you for the call. I'm not interested in it. But my tenant is about to leave my building, and it's only one single tenant building. And it's 133,000 square feet, and a landlord is only as good as his tenant. And if he leaves, I'm gonna need another tenant, or I'm gonna need to sell. And he was an older gentleman, and he said, "This is what I need to do. So can you help me?" And immediately we set up the meeting, and we got that listing. So with one listing, you can get another listing. Okay. It's just making the calls and making the reps. So what Julio's doing is really good. And typically when you call the surrounding area, that's very helpful because now you're like, okay, this guy has a listing in my neighborhood and he's calling me. That shows, one, he's diligent. Two, he's an expert in his market. So those things are showing that he's active, right? That's very good.
That's just to kind of go back of, when I called Manny, you and I were about to close Sky Chefs, right? So obviously it was a cold storage deal. So I used that as, okay, let's see what other cold storage is in the area. That's how I came across Manny Rivas, the Argentinian guy on the river. At the time, I had gotten an offer from Prologis on the lake, you remember. So I've always been, it works better for me when I have something. I kind of use that as I create a story around what I already have. I make it a story, and I guess it's believable because it's true. I had an offer from Prologis on the lake, if you remember, a couple of years back. And that led me to call a lot of people on the river, on that area. I came across the Argentinian guy and several other people there. Now,
let me stop you real quick. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Julio.
Yeah.
But it just came to my thought. When you have something like that, what makes you call other people, you have to believe the deal, right? So Julio believes it. Julio actually believes it. When you don't believe something, when you feel like you don't have anything to really offer, you're not gonna call. But when you really believe, okay, I got something in the, I have something and I'm gonna push it. That's what makes your call a lot more interactive. And the other person on the other side of the call is gonna feel like, man, this guy is serious. This guy is really, he has something here. And you have to believe it. You have to communicate that over to the other person on the call. Okay. So I just want to kind of put that out there because I think it's important. And I'm sure Julio, you can relate to that.
Absolutely. And I think that's how I came across Machado too. We had the other land. Remember, we had the little land for the old men, the 8 acres, 10 acres. And that's how I came across Machado. And obviously we have it on the contract. I was giving him the whole story, the whole process of what we were doing with the land. Whether he believed it or not, but it's creative, it's developed another relationship with another potential seller at some point. So much for that he called me on Saturday, on Saturday, no, it was on Friday or Thursday. He has a land, a development land in Little Havana. So he called me to tell me, hey, this is what I have, this is how much I want. Now it's overpriced, right? But he called me, he thought of me because of the relationship that I've been talking to him for the past 2 years. So he called me, he's gonna send me 4 plans, his daughter, put me in contact with his daughter. You have to believe in it. And I've always used something that I guess that's it gives me the better,
gives you leverage,
more credibility, more leverage. Even the retail, that listing that I have is because I called a guy to tell him I have a buyer, I have a 1031 buyer, cash buyer. The story is to a point that eventually I brought him there, even though he wasn't the buyer. Now he's not the buyer, but to the point that I brought the guy there. And people, when the other side believes in your story and they think that, this guy is real, I feel like it gives them, you make the story believable, they're more open to talking to you and know that you're not just going to sell or to get a listing.
Good. That's very good. So most of the deals that Julio has done, I would say, including the Hialeah Gardens land, the Sky Chef deal, the retail deal that you have now, like a lot of these larger transactions, has all been through off market, and it's all hunting, making the end caller believe that you have something on the hook. If it's a listing, if it's something, and then following up. Hey, I have this. And now so much so that man that has this Machado man, he's never given Julio a listing, but he's calling Julio and saying, hey, I have a land in Little Havana that's a development opportunity, and I'm calling you to let you know about it, that I want to sell it. It's creating that relationship. What else do you have? Showing Machado that you have buyers that are working with you. So Machado also sees, wow, this guy is not just talking, but he's coming to my land with different prospects.
Right.
So that's a good way of prospecting. The only thing I would add to that, Julio, is just organize yourself, add a list to your, I'm sure you do have a list, but have a list that you're going by and continue following up so your numbers get a little larger. Start expanding into the numbers a little bit.
The one thing that I've gotten more organized, and obviously I know that you've always been organized since I met you. It's been a little bit harder for me, but now it kind of helps that I'm training Lucas in his free time, whatever hour or two he has in the mornings. Like, he sits down with me and I train him, so he pushes me to get more organized. So now when I call, whether it's a buyer or prospect, I automatically go to Excel and save that information in there, which I didn't do before. I'm going to be honest. I didn't do that before because I just wanted to call people and I say, you know what, I'll do it later. And I never did it. So now I just make sure that I go in and I spend that minute to add that contact to my Excel, whether it's a buyer, developer, whatever it may be, I just add it there. And Lucas pushes me because he goes, you got to work. He calls it, you have to work smarter. And it's pushed me to get more organized. And that, I think that's really going to make a difference, in the next 6 months, year or 2 years down the line. It's going to make a difference for me because even though I've gotten some of these off-market deals, I feel like I've lost some of them too by not being organized.
And that's good that you're not hearing it just from me, but from your son. That's good.
Right. Yeah.
And now hold that thought, because I'm just gonna circle around and it's gonna make sense at the end of why it's important to stay organized. All right, guys, who's next?
I'll do it.
All right,
Question,
Sandy.
I have a question for Julio before we go.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I understood that when you have a listing, you start, let's say that you have a retail listing or whatever, and you start calling the other owners to see if they are interested in buying, or who do you call?
Okay, so I make 2 different calls, right? So the first thing, obviously, I have a listing. So I want to call, I want to see who bought it, right? I want to see who bought in that area recently at the highest price. So I'm going to call those buyers and tell them what I have. Now, my second call,
That's first.
right,
That's
are going
first.
to be, yeah, that's one call. Now, my second call is going to
And
be to,
what do you say? Because they already have their properties and you're trying to sell your property. So what do you tell them?
no, because they bought all the property. They're buying, let's say I have a retail, a 10,000 square foot retail, right? So I'm going to do a CoStar. I look for, now I use CoStar for, the public
IMAP.
record. So the IMAP. Right? So now I look to see who's bought in the last 6 months to a year close by where I have the retail, right? Let's use the retail. So whoever bought at the highest price, I'm calling those buyers, right? And they've given me actually information on the retail, how much rent they're getting. So it's information that even though they're not the buyer, but I just create a conversation with them. And they give me information on rent, how they bought the property. Hey, we bought the property at this, but we have to replace the roof. So I already know that my deal is not so bad because it has a new roof. They bought at that price, but the roof was completely damaged. They had to spend an extra $150,000, $200,000 on a new roof. So I get information on the deals, right? So those are my first calls. Then my second set of calls is going to be to other retail owners, similar properties. Even though obviously I know we're industrial, but I like to use that because I may come across another retail. I call the retail across the street. Hey, by the way, I'm selling this property. I just showed the property to a group and they asked me to contact you to see if you would be interested in selling and do you have a price in mind? So I'll call all the retails in the area with an excuse that I show this property. I do have a property that I'm selling. I showed it to them, but they also like yours. Will you be interested? Will you consider selling? So those are my two set of calls that I do when I have a listing. And by the way, the Sky Chefs deal, I didn't talk, but that also came up of an offer that I have from Prologis on the lake. And the Sky Chefs deal was very close by. So I called the guy and I told him, I have a property. I have an offer on a property, on this property here next to yours. Will you consider? And, they also have an interest in your property. And in that time, it was true. Prologis had actually put an offer on the Sky Chefs before. So he told me, oh, yeah, they put an offer before. Prologis, yeah, they put an offer before. So, but the guy worked with us. He didn't tell me, don't bring it to Prologis. But that's how the Sky Chefs deal came, how the conversations with the seller started, through another offer that I had nearby.
And you were saying, thank you, Julio. And you were saying that when you have a buyer, you also call the sellers? Let's say, for example, now I have a buyer that he needs between 8 to 10,000 square feet of an industrial building that I cannot find, and they sell cellulars and cell phones and computers, so they are really particular about the.
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna butt in here real quick. So
Yeah.
so what Julio's talking about, Julio's referring more to as investment deals. He's calling buyers that are investors, that they buy properties and get a return on their investment. You're dealing with an industrial buyer who's an end user who's going to need to occupy the building. That's a little bit different and it's a little bit more difficult as far as on the hunting approach, because now you have to specifically call on either a vacant building or a high vacant building. Your approach or who you're going to target is a little different because your buyer needs to occupy the building. A building that's about to be vacant, or you're going to call a building that has high vacancy. So it's a little bit different on the approach.
So when you were talking about buyers, it's not about a user, but an investor.
Yeah, remember, there's different types of buyers. There's users, there's user investor, and there's investor. But that's a very good question.
Yeah, it's good. But for me, Angela, even if I have a buyer, like I will use that as it doesn't mean that I'm actually hunting for that guy. I'm actually hunting for me. I just use that la novela. I use that excuse, right? It's like I have a buyer, even though it may not be for him. But if I look at a property that I see has a high probability of the guy selling, when he buys for, is there vacancy? Is the property, not well taken care of, and you feel like there's a possibility that guy may sell? I use that 8,000 square feet as an excuse. It doesn't mean that I'm actually looking for him, because I know it's very hard to look for an end user, look for 8,000. I'm not hunting for the guy. I'm hunting for me, to try to get a listing, to try to get a guy to say, yes, I'm selling.
Yeah, you want
it for me.
Yeah, based on what Julio's saying is completely right. You're using the 8,000 as a bait. You're using it to make the call, to make that owner realize that you're making the call, you're an expert, and you're actually doing your job. And that's gonna stick to him and say, oh no, look, I'm not selling, no sé qué cosa. But you create that into an opportunity to get into a rapport or make it a warm call and say, listen, it's okay, you're not selling, but you know, I'm gonna be in the area. This is what I do. Save my contact information. What's your email? And now you have a new contact, a new owner. Now you drip on them. And that's where it starts. Because of that one conversation, that is super important. Do not devalue the importance or the value of that conversation on the phone. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Do not devalue that call, that one call on the phone, because that's a person that listens to your voice and actually spoke to you. And now you take advantage of that, and now you make sure you get an email so that person can always hear and see you. If it's not on the phone, it's going to be online, it's going to be on an email somehow, okay? Through different softwares that we have and systems. The idea is to put it into the system and let the system do the work so that person will never forget about you. And that is the key.
Thank you, Julio.
You're welcome.
Sorry for the interruption.
That was really good.
Well, what I've done for the past 3 weeks is I didn't know my area, guys. So I've been driving through the 33147 and scoping out buildings with trailers or anything like that. And also I've been focusing because the lot that I have on 27th Avenue is way above pricing, and I do get calls, but it's a joking matter. So I also hooked up with the marketing guy, and I'm gonna start. I want to do the EDDMs and just send out information, and then from that point on, I'm just gonna start knocking, because I didn't know my area. So now that I know it, I can wrap my head around it. I like the phone, but I like to be face to face and then follow up with the call, the drips, and so on. So my plan this month is to get those EDDMs out and also continue to knock on doors with something in my hand.
So one, the listing on the 27th is amazing because it's a net, right? We put the net, we got called from the boat owner saying, take down that net. And then the next day, the whale gets in the net. So use that net to screen, you know, and see what you're getting in there. Now, with regards to knocking on doors, I'm not against knocking on doors. I mean, knocking on doors is the best because you're face to face. But as far as time goes, I think it's best that you get a list of your area into an Excel sheet, right? And in that list, you're gonna see when they bought, is it vacant or is it partially vacant? So you'll see vacancy rate, you'll see when they acquired, and then you'll see who the owner is. Usually it's a corporation name, so you're gonna have to transfer that list through Fiverr, right? How I taught you, pay somebody 5, 10, 15 bucks to go through that and get you name of owner with phone number. That call is what you have to do, because you're gonna make at least 10 calls for every door you knock. What I encourage you to do is you sit in your office, get a nice jug of coffee, if you like coffee, or you like Celsius, or if you like Red Bull, or whatever. Lock the doors, get in the zone, put a little bit of music in the background, get in the zone, and you're gonna go through that list and you're gonna say, hey, I'm calling Mr. Owner. I have this property down the street listed for sale. I have one on their contract. I don't believe we've met before. I would like to know a little bit about you and offer you and see if there's any interest in my property. And then you just stay quiet. You want to say a little bit and then just stay quiet and then let them talk. When you have them talking, that's where you want to be, okay? And at that point, you get an email. Listen, I'm going to be in the area sometime next week. I'll stop by if it's okay with, or let me know what time works best next week. Tuesday. Always say a date and a time. Does that work? Sure. I'll send you a calendar invite. There, you stop by, you meet them, you bring a brochure of what we've closed or whatnot, and you go meet with them. Now it's a warmer, you called, met, you told, they know who you are, and now you're gonna meet with them. That's more of a solidified, meeting. Instead of randomly showing up, you don't know if they're gonna pass your card, some random agent just stop by. You know what I'm saying? So it's different. Then the call is more direct. The list. Definitely focus on the list. Okay, that's fine. Seth.
So I've been focusing on doing as many in-person meetings as possible and kind of farming my network that I have thus far. Admittedly, I have not been making the calls that I need to, but I have been spending more time getting coffee, getting lunch, checking in on people, trying to go deeper with people as opposed to wide. It's starting to produce some interesting leads. I just had coffee with this international tax consultant. He's an accountant that works for a big major firm. He basically said, "Hey, look, I don't know any other commercial brokers. I would love to, have you in my network. Let's see what we can do together." And he's basically the gateway to foreign South American buyers. So trying to develop those relationships, has been what I've been spending my time on. But I do need to make more calls. So
I think it's I just want to keep it as simple as possible for you guys, so it doesn't get complicated. I think there's a formula, and if you guys just stick to the formula, it's going to be very simple. Pick an area, make a list of all the owners, call those owners. If you can meet with them, offer them something of value, and then put them on a campaign in your email database where once a month they're going to receive an email from you with something of value from that area, of something that's sold, something, and then offer always a call to action with regards to a free broker opinion of value, and that's pretty much it. And get deeper within those owners that you have already met with, like the guys in the annexation area. Just meet with them again. Just want to stop by, meet, see how, the guy that had that distribution company on 72nd, the Italian brothers, what's his name? Armelini. These are big landlords, as long as it's repetitive. Again, I say it again, repetitive. If they don't hear from you again, then it's just a waste, right? So that's why that initial conversation, that cold conversation you had, turn it into the warmest conversation you can by never letting that person go. Get that information, that email, and drip on them. If you want to add another tool in there, like another touch, which is that voicemail tool that we have, use that as well. And if you can structure something where once a month, these people are hearing from you every month, that is the name of the game. And that's just the name of the game. Like, people always have to know who you are and what you do. But there has to be a sniper approach. Like, what is your target? What are you targeting? And stay focused on that target. I'm going to make sure all the owners in this area know who I am. And how do you do that? You get the list and make sure each one of those emails you have, and not only just have, that system is working for you while you're sending out LOIs, while you're meeting with people, while you're constantly making that list grow, and it works for you. So when you click a button, you said send, I have a deal, they're like, wow, you're going to get feedback, because now you have your list, you have your business. You guys are business owners. This is your business. I'm here trying to facilitate and help it grow as a team. We're working as a team, but at the end of the day, you guys run your business. You guys are entrepreneurs. You guys make this thing go. Your database, obviously, like I've always said, keep it organized. There's owners, there's tenants, investors. Now, guys, you're getting the CRM called Wise Agent. I encourage everybody to do it, to sign up for their onboarding. This is going to take us to the next level, because now we're going to be really organized. I'm going to be able to assign certain deals now, keep on track, where you see everything in a portal, more organized, easier. So, which is great, because we're not going to have to go different places like, oh, Google Sheets, this, that. Everything's going to be on the CRM. All right. So who's next? Greg, tell me what you're doing to prospect.
Cold calling a list, as well as cold calling, property appraisal, hunting approach.
Greg is one of well, he doesn't have CoStar, so he's using what he has, which is property appraiser. He's using IMAP. He's using, those tools. So what list? Where did you pull your list from?
Well, now, I'm actually I was driving out the other day, the area, and I was putting down properties, kind of low hanging fruit, it looks abandoned, raggedy, whatever. And I, wrote them down. Now I'm putting them in my Excel sheet, and I'm gonna prospect, I think they're listed with like 50 properties. So I'm gonna, prospect those this week.
My old broker would say, drive your market on a Saturday. But I actually did it. I did it because Saturday is like family time, but you wake up early in the morning and you drive your market. That's a way of kind of writing down or taking pictures and notes of what properties you want to kind of go after in your market. That's a good way of one, knowing your market, and it gets you kind of in that habit of driving your market. So you're going to see a lot of things like for rent and you know it's like a by owner type of thing. And so it's a landlord that you can kind of contact directly. Hey, listen, I saw your for rent sign. I think Greg, it happened to Greg one time. He was driving, he saw a for rent sign, and that's it. You create a relationship. Like, hey, listen, I can get this rented for you. Like, I'll help you. So that's why it's important. I want to highlight that is drive your market. Saturday mornings are a very good day. Sorry, Greg. I just want to kind of highlight that, but that was good.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, so that's the prospecting part. And calling, cold calling, and I ran into an owner. Well, this one was it wasn't on the list, but I was like on the map looking around, and it
This is
was
a win. This is a win. Sharing
yeah,
a win.
yeah, it was like a 7 acre site in Doral, raw land, and it was in a prime location. You would think that they'll get hammered by calls. But I called the lady, and I was trying to research her last year, but I couldn't find her phone number. Um, but then I finally found it, this time around. I called her, say, hey, I have a buyer interested. They asked me to call you. I don't want to waste your time. Want to see if this would be of interest. And she was really chill. She was from she comes from real estate world. So, she was very very soft spoken, not, a harsh, rude person at all. She told me that, they're not actively looking to sell, but they'll entertain something. They want to be part of the deal. They want to be involved. So she kind of told me what they want to do. So we got a call the next day with the buyer, and we put two and two together. Buyer prepped an offer, did some engineering work, went to the site. Then we set up a meeting last Friday in Aventura, for the buyer and seller to meet. And they were just presenting the offer and just talking, because those development deals is more like it's more a lot of moving stuff, because some owners want to you know do different things. Some don't want an outright sale but want to be part of the deal, and so on. So it's just to see what people wanted. And so then after that, I felt like it was a good. I feel like she was very receptive and willing to do something. She said that now is, I think she says that she thinks now is the right time to do a move, to do something. And so we're waiting on her. She sent an email that she's gonna talk it over with her family and get back with us to see what we're gonna do to proceed or not. But yeah, I mean, it moved pretty fast, and it's a nice piece in Doral. So
Congrats.
Nice.
Congrats.
So that's a nice win. It's funny because he mentioned a lot. It was like 7 acres. I immediately knew which one it was. Because it was listed, I think, at one point before, many years ago, a couple years ago, from one of my friends who's with MMG, who works with Gabe Navarro, who was one of the owners of Navarro, the pharmacies, and they started buying retail. So they had that site listed for a while with Marco, I think. But it's not really just a retail site. It's actually retail mixed use. So Greg's buyer is a developer in multifamily. What Greg was saying, that she's very interested, I guess, in preceding a sale and keeping a portion of, I guess, equity, or giving up the land as equity on the
yeah.
development. That'll be a nice deal there in Doral, prime on 41st Street. A nice development right across from Bridge. So that's a nice win. James or Santi, do you guys want to?
What I've been doing for prospecting, it's been basically like the 2025 version of, the yellow pages. I want to say early last year, George told me, hey, look, we have this acre for lease and we haven't been able to get anyone to lease it. This is your job. See if you can get it. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So immediately I hit Google, searched up truck parking or truck companies in Miami. Hitting up each one every day, getting phone calls, getting, contacts. And that was like another process to do. I had to like make a net and filter who's a legitimate person that actually makes decisions and who doesn't. So that's like a separate Excel sheet I made of different people, like owners of the companies that I have available to me. And then one of these truck companies was Harbor Transport. And I took them actually to that site twice. Then nothing came to fruition, unfortunately. However, every month or so, I would follow him up. This was the regional manager. And then late November of last year, the owner of the company, it's a national company based in Indiana, called me. Can we get the listing, the sub listing? and put a sign up. It's like, yeah, no problem. You'll be able to do it. So then that's where George and I were like, okay, perfect. Let's get a sublisting agreement signed. We put up a sign, and then literally, like said, in 3 days, the owners of the land said, hey, you have to take your sign down. But it was on the weekend. So, hey, we told them we'll get someone out there on Monday to take it down. But that Saturday, a really big, a way over 10, who actually is leasing a huge building behind the lot, said, hey, I'm very interested in this lot. I would love to take it. I'll sublease it and then do a 5-year, long-term deal after. But it's just a lot of moving parts because from there, the main tenant, which is Harbor Transport, wants to go to another site. So we're closing that deal soon. That's in the process of closing soon. And then they'll get another site in Savannah. So that's what I've been doing for when it comes to prospecting. Going from there, there was another with the Yellow Pages method I did basically on Excel. One of these owners, it gave me another number to an owner like of several properties throughout the Miami area. One of these guys, he owns the lot where on H. Gregg is that big car rental company on 87th and like 12th Street. And they contacted me, that owner contacted me recently just to do a quick survey, basically saying, how much can I lease this thing out for if I were to lease it? And basically, he kind of gave me a challenge of, look, I don't want to broadcast this yet. The tenant is very happy there. But if you were to bring another tenant that's willing to do a potential buyout, I'll be very interested. That's having an Excel sheet. So I got that more from George. He kind of got me organized. Instead of just calling people and have them all down in an Excel sheet, I would call people, and based off how far the conversation got in, if they know me by name or not, I would put them in an Excel sheet. And basically every time I'll call guys, they know me already, and I'll show them, hey, look, here's something that came through our desk. Another company like that I got a decent relationship with is Bentley Trucking. George was telling me they might be in the process of potentially moving as well, so that could be something soon happening as well.
That's good that you highlight the ones that you have warmer calls with, because those are the ones that are more engaging. Now it's just a matter of really trying to contact owners with that industrial zoning who have that property, that type of property, and calling them to see if they'd like to sell. That's exactly how you're building your business. Tenants is what runs the economy, what landlords need in order to thrive in their investments. And tenants is really one of the most important things in this business, because that's what runs the economy, what runs the market. That's the backbone of the country, right? The businesses. Now you just make a list of that and go after those guys. And that's what I would recommend for you. But that's really good, James. Congrats. I'm really proud of how you're growing, and you're kind of staying consistent, and you're going after it. So good job on that.
Thank you.
Santi.
For prospecting, I would say majority cold calls, but there's different types of calls I make. One of them is more of I switched it up. I used to hunt a lot, but now my conversations are a little bit different. So I try to conversate with them more. A lot of times I'm speaking to a business owner, and I bring up a lease back, and a lot of times they're not interested. And I'm like, hey, I offer a BOV, a valuation, and a lot of times they're open to it. Recently, I was working on a requirement, an owner user, and that led me to make a lot of connections in the area because it was kind of a conversation starter. So last week, I spoke to 5 people that were open to valuation. So I would probably have to follow up with them this week. Then another call I was making is to tenants, and actually through those calls from a listing I thought I was going to get, but it's no longer really in play. I met an owner user who's looking to purchase, and I've been working on that requirement since. We just had a call with Seth earlier, so we're still trying to push it forward. I've been getting a few LOIs out with Greg, who just hunting approach. Met this guy, I think in East Hialeah. He has a nice portfolio, but we should get an offer out on one of his sites. Hopefully it could lead to more business, or hopefully we could get something done there. And there's another call I make when it's just pitching the North Miami land. And through pitching that land, I've gotten in touch with a few of the owners in the area that typically when I call them, they always, oh, don't call me again. They get mad. But when you call offering something like the land, they kind of tell me, what they need. There's a guy that does telecommunications, and he stores a bunch of satellites in his yard. So I saw that and I was like, okay, this guy could be interested in the site. And then he started telling me about his plans, that he's going to have a contract with Amazon. And it was a different company. I think it was a different company, one of those bigger companies that he was getting a contract with, and they might need more land. So the land could potentially work for them.
Yeah, but that gave you an open door.
Yeah, an open door.
To a new deal.
Yeah, and then there's another guy I spoke to, an investor. He's open to meeting. He's right there on the same street. The land could work for him. He was considering building something on it. And then on Yellow Pages, making those calls, I got in contact with a few towing guys who they know the site. So there's a few people I have to follow up with regarding that site. But I met like 2, 3 owners. They're open to meeting, even if they don't want to close on the land. You can harbor a relationship and, you know.
Great job, great job. So what I encourage you to do is continue using the listings as almost like your bait, right? Like we call it bait or your hook to get in the door, which is then going to open up other doors, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you ever get on a call like you just did, we want to offer, we want to give. I'm a strong believer in Acts 20:35. It's better to give than to receive. So if you can always give, hey, I'll give you a free BOV, establish a good relationship so you know what your property is worth.
I think I have to, because I offered the BOV when I was making these calls to find something for my buyer, but it was in that same call. So, they're kind of defensive. So I feel like I have to make another follow-up call, say, hey, we spoke last week. This, I understand you weren't interested, but then I bring up the BOV because I brought it up and then
Yeah, it's how you flow in the conversation too.
Yeah.
You're on the conversation. You're not gonna sound robotic. You're gonna say, "Yeah, I'll give you a free BOV." No, you say, "Hey, you know what? By the way, if you like, I do BOVs, opinion of values. They're worth like $1,500. I can give you one for free. The banks usually call us and they pay us for this stuff. But if you like, just for on your property, if you don't mind or if you like, I have no problem doing it. So you understand the way of asking, like, hey, this is something of value, and I'm open to giving you one.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been learning. Just the people who are more open and they're more friendly, then I can kind of push a conversation, ask them a little bit of questions. But when there's people that they come off really like they're just like, no, not interested. A lot of times when you try to force it, it's just this is not
Not
really
good.
going anywhere.
Doesn't end up right.
Yeah, at some point I'm just like, all right, okay, have a good day, man. Yeah, move on to the next person who might be friendly.
Good. You remember, we're not here to chase anyone. At the end of the day, a lot of these people need time. They need our value. You guys are experts. You guys are professionals. You guys are commercial brokers. Okay, we're agents. We are knowledgeable in the market. They need you. They need so don't try to force yourself on anyone. Never. We're not here to do that. It's okay. Have a great day. There's people that do need it, and they're gonna. I forgot who I shared this video with. I think it was Andre and Santi in the car. He's a very famous attorney here, well known in the Spanish community, but he has his own building there on 49th Street. Guy's young, but he's wealthy. He recorded a video saying, and he was referring to a friend of his who's a real estate agent, right? And he's like, hey, how many 30 million? He's like, when are you gonna start knocking on 30 million or calling $30 million owners, like owners that own $30 million of real estate or more? He goes, never. Okay, he's like, who do you call now? He goes, oh, I call owners that own $300,000 home. He goes, how does it feel to get hung up on or disrespected by a $300,000 owner? He goes, I don't feel anything. It's just part of my job. He goes, wouldn't it feel a little better? I mean, if an owner of $30 million owner would kind of hang up on you, like, he's like, well, I didn't think it was like, he's like, right, because the $30 million owner wouldn't do that to you. They'd actually appreciate you calling them because nobody calls them. You get the difference there? Because everybody's calling the $300,000 owners like the small people, small owners, and they're all disrespectful. They're all like, oh, he's trying to like get my money, or he's a cold caller, or and they hang up on you because everybody's going after that. But on the $30 million owners, nobody calls them. If they do, those people they're actually taking it back. They're like, wow, this person's actually calling me. He's actually working and doing his job. Hey, you know what? Let's meet for coffee. That's how they see it. They're like, these people actually work. The $30 million owner has a different mentality. Like, this guy is actually going out of his way and calling me for work. Like, wow, they appreciate that. They appreciate hard work. The rich really appreciate the work. So that goes to show you guys that call them. Do the sniper approach. Call them, because those are the people actually giving you the time of day. They're gonna want to sit with you. They're gonna want to have coffee with you. They're gonna want to know more of what you have to offer. And those are the ones that feels good to work with, right? And you get to choose who do you work with or not. So I want to leave you guys with that one. I think we went across with everyone. Andre is still learning. Andre is taking notes. Andre actually asked me to get that feedback from you guys because he wants to know too. So I think that was great.
You guys know Santi and Greg. I've asked you guys too. What are you guys doing? I want to hear from everybody else also. So it helped a lot. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback.
So that was good.
Appreciate it.
All right, great. Guys, do you guys have any questions for me? Anything that I can kind of help you with as far as tips or pointers that I haven't kind of gone over?
Georgia, I wanted to get your feedback. I plan on going door knocking on these parks up north in Broward on Friday. I want to start making that a habit, and I want to bring something to provide like the tenants, some sort of something to give them. I was thinking of putting a few of the options on the market, even if they're not our listings, and kind of just showing the tenants what's on the market and showing them that they have other options. Do you think that's a good idea, or should?
I think you should use the listings that we have already, even if it's for sale for lease. And I know that we have a one pager that we would need to update or modify to wherever market you're going to target. Like if it's Broward, we can modify that one page flyer towards tenant rep. And then that's kind of like a door opener, like what leased in the area, and what's available for lease. Like you could do what's available for lease and what leased in the bottom of the page. There's a template, and I'll ask Jane to share it with you, a one pager. And it kind of talks about what you do as a tenant rep that helps them. And I think it's broken down as like what, who, where, why. And it's very simple in English and Spanish. And then you walk in and you say, hey, look, these are, I wanted to drop this off for you. And it's a valuable information on where, what we do as tenant reps to help you and what properties are available on the market and what leased on the market. So you're giving them value, and then you're showing them what you do.
Yeah, because I did get a lot of success when I was calling for Mark's site. I met a few of the tenants that had upcoming renewals, and I got them in my system. But that's really because I'm offering something, and then I'm like, hey, I understand you guys don't want to move, but and then whatever, I get their email. I'm like, hey, I'll provide you with other options on the market.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier when you have
Yeah. So typically you want to knock on the parks, right? Large parks that are large landlords. Those are the parks you want to knock on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Another little trick or tip is if you see a park that just sold recently, if it's a park that sold, you want to knock on those doors, because every tenant in there is going to get bumped up with operating expenses like taxes, insurance, and all that stuff. They don't know it. They might not know it. So you're there to educate them, and they'd appreciate that coming from you.
Okay.
All right.
I'll send Jane an email to get that one pager because I want to start hunting more tenants.
Yeah, try looking for it on Dropbox under tenant rep. I think we have some flyers there, like old flyers, and then just ask her, hey, update this information with what's current in the market in this area. Maybe you want to go on LoopNet, just get a few current listings, and then to find out what leased, you're gonna have to go through CoStar to see what leased, and that you can put that on there. If not, you just put what's available on the market, and that should.
I think on Crexy.
Huh?
On Crexy, they show a little bit of lease data.
Oh yeah, okay, so you could use Crexy then.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Good. Awesome. Have a great week. Anything you guys need, let me know, okay?
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, George.